Some months ago, we were pleased to see that Bendix King took the bit in the teeth and let's try that again, introduced, you try talking nonstop for 3 hours and see what you get, introduced an AOA indicator. Now the KLR-10 did a lot of things right from the get-go. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. AOA technologies, especially coming out of the experimental community, both military as well as civilian, it has absolutely baffled me that this isn't a part of every Cessna, every Beech, every Piper, because there's just such an intrinsic, basic set of knowledge in understanding what your airplane's doing that is irrespective of airspeed. It's all about the attitude of the airplane. So good for you, and I see you've already been copied, so yay for that too. So tell me about the development of the product. What was this like? What's going on, and where do you go from here?
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, we saw a need in the market space for an angling, low-cost angle attack gauge for the general aviation public. Like you said, it's been used quite a bit in the military and bigger aircraft, and it's a great safety device to let people know what the airplane's doing if they're close to stall. And what we did with the KLR-10 was like get a device out there that's easy to install, easy to interpret, and gives you great visual and audio warnings if the plane's getting close to unsafe conditions.
Yeah, the visual ergonomics are outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
Really worked well. I like that a bunch, especially having worked with a whole lot of older military technology and some really funky experimental technology on the civilian and even aerospace side. You just kind of look at that and kind of go, okay, one of these days that'll make sense. This is fairly intuitive. You don't even have to really know that much about how that information is derived to know when you're safe, when you're getting into a world of hurt, and when you got to watch yourself. So it works out very well from that standpoint. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, because it's an exciting aspect of it, is how this unit is quote-unquote certified. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so that's one of the big misconceptions. It's actually not a certified product. What it was is the FAA changed the way to install these type of safety devices on aircraft. So the new ASTM standards, what they said is that you could take an aircraft that's basically used for safety device on the aircraft and allowed to be installed using a basically logbook entry by an A&P. And so what they did is they together the standard, they signed it into basically FAA registry in the beginning of February, and then as a company you apply to get a letter from the FAA saying you meet the ASTM standard, which is some quality standards, testing standards, of very much less standards than like a totally certified product. So there's no TSO, there's no STCs, so it really takes the cost out when you're not doing all that extra work. So as soon as that letter...
And nobody's waiting for certs from 800 Independence Avenue until 2016.
Right, yeah, exactly. It takes time. It's just something that it takes time to get done. And by having this new standard, as soon as that came out, we had the letter ready to go. We applied for it. And basically 2 weeks later, which is a great turnaround time on the FAA.
How long?
2 weeks. From the time we submitted our letter to the time we got the letter saying...
Who did you have to kill? Whose mother-in-law did you hide?
No,
seriously.
No, that was the whole idea of the standards, to really expedite the ability to get the stuff into the aircraft. Because most of us know the number one cause of accident in GA is basically loss of control flight. This device...
And it keeps happening over. You know how disheartening it is for those of us in the news business to see yet another, departure stall accident, another approach to landing stall, another. Good grief. The one thing we look at is, okay, sooner or later somebody's going to find a new way to crash an airplane, and then that'll be news. Oof. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's the big change, because if you look at accident rates, every other part of the industry, the accident rate has gone down dramatically over the years. GA hasn't. No. So I'm pretty steady over the years. And so that's why I think the FAA's really started to work. We got to find a better way to get these devices that are low cost into the marketplace. And we're lucky that we are the first ones out there with a product that's met the standard.
Outstanding. What has been the industry reception? What are you hearing? What are people telling you, both from the install community as well as the user community?
A little bit of both. I think the biggest thing is going to be education. Most of the civilian pilot population have never seen an angle attack and know very little about it. If you're from the military or flew like airliners, it's a very common device. So we're going to have
light bulb goes on real quick there.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to spend a lot of time working at various seminars, basically educating people on the angle attack. I think once they understand it more, you'll see a big intake of this product and this technology into these aircraft.
Interesting. Where did this come from? Who ran this program? What did it take? How big of a sales job was this internally at Bendix King to say, Well, we're designing a new company. I mean, let's face it, we're Bendix King.
Yep.
We're a really big deal. We're going to be a really big deal again. We've got great leadership. All that's all well and good. Why does one of your pinnacle leading edge products turn out to be an AOA indicator?
Well, one of the big things that we're focused on is basically bringing low cost, valuable products to the marketplace. And this fit an area where there is no solutions in the marketplace. So there's an opportunity for us to bring out a product that could really change, both safety as well as the paradigm of $15,000 products, $12,000 products into the general aviation marketplace. So by having this product out there, it kind of resets the bar a little bit. It allows Bendix to get its name back in there, both on the experimental side as well as the certified side of airplane market.
Well, one thing I know that Kevin Gould is well aware of is the cost escalation aspect of aviation has been a killer since day one. It's just really, from a sales standpoint anyway, I know when he was running Piper, it was just a hard thing to explain how valuable something was when it started at $750,000. And even though when you looked at it, tremendous value proposition and so forth. But when you start looking at the little things that add up cumulatively, call them the evolutionary steps of a revolution, that's when things get real interesting down the line and companies can really change an industry. So we're really glad to see this happen. What's your education program for the user? How are you bridging the gap to the general aviation pilot who's heard about angle of attack, who's seen one or two episodes of 12 O'Clock High or whatever the case may be, and is some concept of what it's about, but doesn't really understand how that's implemented in their everyday flying?
So we'll do a couple things. We'll do seminars ourselves. We'll be going around various avionics shops and bringing in their customer base and doing basically seminars on the weekdays or weekends. And we're also, we've talked to the FAA and using the FAST program, basically doing some seminars with the FAST program as well, where it's going out and basically explaining what it does, giving some statistics on what AOA is, how it's been used in the past, and how this device could actually really help them with their flying. Because if you're flying the approach, you get distracted. This will actually give you a cue that, hey, by the way, your aircraft's close to stall, and you have kids in the back talking, or you're looking for something, and you're looking on your chart, and it's that distraction that really catches people in the end.
Let's take a stereotypical flight in the Cherokee 140 I was talking about a little bit ago. What does this, walk me through a flight and how this should be operated by the GA pilot. What's it bring to them? Where the danger spots have been without this kind of information? Where does the KLR-10 show up and say, hey, buddy, I'm your friend, listen to me?
So the biggest part is basically during an approach. So as you're basically coming into the approach, your angle attack and your wing never changes. So your stall angle attack is always the same. And once the device has been calibrated, installed in the aircraft, so as you basically coming around the bank and you start bringing the wing up and start slowing down, you'll start seeing the gauge change from basically a green to yellows to basically a blue donut. Once you're on the blue donut, that's basically your optimal approach speed and the optimal approach angle attack. So as you're flying down, you have a very controlled approach, and it allows you to basically really pick your landing point where you want to go, as well as have a nice, smooth, controlled approach to landing. When people get in trouble a lot of times, like I said, they get distracted and they basically overbank and they start getting into an accelerated stall situation. You start seeing the aircraft, before you know the plane flips over, this will actually start getting you those type warnings well in advance of that. So you start seeing the yellows, start seeing the reds. Also, as you start to get to the situation where the airplane is getting past that critical AOA, it'll start saying, check AOA, too slow, and they say basically too slow, really loud, so you really pay attention to it. So the biggest safety devices, like I said, is around the approach face, and that's where you see most of the accidents. Sometimes on departures, if you get distracted, you start doing a turnout, same situation. You're pulling out away from the airport, you're not paying attention, you basically overbank the aircraft and stall it.
Yep.
So those are the areas where you can see probably the most benefit of this product. And I said with both the visual and audio cues, it really gives you two ways to warn you if something's going wrong.
We had a tragic accident down in the Central Florida area a year before last, I believe. Cirrus, who was warned of oncoming traffic, either saw something or didn't see something, added power, cranked around, pulled hard, and next thing you know, he's in the ground. Too low for the chute. I don't even know if it was even attempted at the time. The problem with accidents like that, it tends to cook off the rocket, and it's hard to tell if it's a chute deployment or not under the circumstances. But this is the kind of accident, fairly experienced pilot,
Yep.
not an old pilot by any stretch of the imagination, but he had reasonably decent training. But he gets distracted.
Exactly.
He's got a tower controller telling him, there's traffic, there's this, there's that. And he's looking for the traffic, he's yanking, he's banking, he's not paying attention. And this is where something like this could easily have made a total difference. This guy may have been walking around otherwise.
Yeah. Like I say, it gives you those warnings when you're basically distracted. That's the whole concept of the product.
Okay, what's it cost to install? What's it take to install? How much?
Yep. The product lists for $1,600. Installs will vary by aircraft, so we try not to quote install prices. We let the dealers do that or your A&P. Basically, you get a probe that goes on a wing through an inspection port. So you basically take one of the existing expensive port plates off, put this probe in there. You run in a couple basic piezostatic lines into a control box that can be mounted by the wing root behind the firewall. Then you wire basically ground, power, and then audio into your intercom and speaker. And that's pretty much a pretty simple install.
What airplanes can it go into?
Any Part 23 aircraft right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
And more important, what's the future of this technology in the Bendix King lineup? Where are we going to see your next product or implementation in this line?
Yeah. So I mean, right now we have a probe basically for a Part 23 unpressurized aircraft. So things we're looking at, do we do one for a pressurized aircraft, obviously? Slightly different technology. Do we integrate flap settings and things like that? So a lot of things we're looking at to add to the product in the future. You got to see what the market's looking for. The device we have now works regardless of what configuration the airplane's in, except for pressurized. So we have heated probes right now, if you want to add any heated probes. So adding a little bit more functionality to it to be in a little bit more complex aircraft. Probably see where it'll go next.
Neat stuff. I'm glad to see it. Like I said, this stuff was beat into my head while my genesis was as a civilian pilot working thereafter in the test community that wound up in a lot of military. It became very evident very quickly that the folks who were trained with and had the respect for using this technology were not the folks having accidents. And why this wasn't in everything from the Piper Cub on up was just absolutely mystified me. So I'm glad to see it here. I'm glad to see it be very cost effective. I think you probably could have priced it twice as much and still done a pretty good business. So good on you for that. We're going to be with some of your other folks tomorrow because you had other big announcements at Bendix King. One of them you were doing your best not to tell me about until the last minute, but we found out anyway. We have our spies there everywhere. Kevin, do your best. We know everything. But we're looking forward to catching up on that project, and we're more important than anything else looking forward to seeing what you come up with by the Oshkosh timeframe.
Yeah, it's going to be a big year for Bendix King. There'll be a lot of products coming out this year.
You got to do so much more with that big building out there, what we call the Oshkosh Trade Center.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, so
Jim, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us. You did a great job on filling people in.
Aero-TV's coverage of the 57th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Nashville, Tennessee, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Flightline Systems introduces the Oracle Engine Power Management System. Featuring a revolutionary glass panel display that mimics your analog gauges, Oracle provides intuitive access to all your critical engine data at a glance, and it's STC'd for primary operation. Oracle is also available for twin-engine aircraft, featuring independent glass panel units in horizontal or vertical form factors. New this year are versions for fixed-wing, turbine, and rotary-wing aircraft with a variety of display options. Oracle is the best co-pilot you'll ever have.
The TI-250 DC to AC inverter pumps out 250 watts of clean, regulated AC cabin or cockpit power. It's perfect for laptops, iPads, tablets, chargers, and special missions equipment. Available from your local Avionics dealer.